Welcome to the Cookbook, where we invite guests on to share the ingredients of what has helped make them the successes that they are. All of it, the good, the not so good. You're not going to find anything half-baked here. And our kitchen gets messy sometimes. That's when the fun starts. So come on and join us. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Cookbook. I'm your host, Iris Goldfeder, and today's guest is Colleen Biggs. And Colleen is pretty awesome. I'm going to read her bio and then bring her on. So Colleen Biggs is a 22-year business strategist that empowers business leaders to expand their influence to attract the right clients and drive more profits. Who does not want more of that? She has launched over 340 businesses, is a sought-after keynote speaker, author to 7 #1 international bestsellers, with the latest being Step Into the Spotlight to Expand Your Influence, the CEO and founder of the LEAP community, and was awarded the Top 10 Women Business Leaders of 2021 and the Most Inspirational Leaders in Business 2023. Colleen provides women with a community of entrepreneurs that take the leap daily and realize their network is their net worth. This is awesome. Okay, so without further ado, let's meet Colleen.
Hey, Iris.
Hey there.
It's so great to be on your show.
Thank you for being here. I love this. I know, the first time we spoke, I was like, you need to be on. And, we just had like such an awesome conversation. I love what you do. I think, wow, as I read all of your accomplishments, it's so amazing.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And, I've spent the, better part of corporate America and all of entrepreneurship really supporting small business owners. That's what it's about. There's so many individuals out there that have a dream, whether it be a couple and they want to open up a new business, or an individual, a female that wants to launch a new business. I think during the pandemic, we really learned that a lot of people kind of had this idea of what they would love to do. And after being home for so long, they decided to put that into motion. And we're seeing many, many, many more businesses get start up from women, especially. And so that doesn't mean because you want to start a business, you know how to start a business. Right. I guess I should say that, right? Yes. Just because you want to be a runner or a cyclist and, compete in a competition doesn't mean you know how to do it. And it takes, kind of the step-by-step. And, usually most people that are running marathons or cycling, they go and work with and get information from someone that's already done it. Right. So you can get the ins and outs of it. And so that's really what I do to support owners. And I'm a numbers person. I wasn't in college. I wasn't in high school. I hated math. But now numbers provide such a clear path, and they provide such vision for a company that I think numbers are important. And I find a lot of business owners ignore the numbers, but the numbers tell everything in a business. So I really stick to that. I create business action plans for those women so they can really reach the financial goals that they're looking to reach. And some of it is about saving more money every month and not spending and wasting money and plugging the holes. And some of it is about really, once the holes are plugged, about filling up the boat, right? So, women are walking around with little Dixie cups, Iris, and they're trying to get their share of the wealth. And I help them build troughs, I guess is the right word. So
that's awesome. And it's, funny because I would say it's funny. It's not funny. But during the pandemic, I think a lot of people, men and women, realized their potential for entrepreneurship, right? I don't think a lot of people thought about it before. I think before it was, either get out of school and get a job, or get out of school, go to more school, get a degree, get a job. It was never about, starting a business. And a lot of people that I'd spoken with didn't think about it until the pandemic, because they were home and they were like, I'm sitting here working for this company. I could probably be doing this for myself or something for myself. And you're right. They didn't necessarily know how to, but they did. And some of them were successful and some of them were not. But you're right with the women piece, because I think with the women, and I'm finding this a lot, is that just, via our society, right? Women are, what did Ginger Rogers say? She had to like dance twice as hard or twice as fast backwards in high heels, to be considered as good as Gene Kelly. But it's true. As women, we have to like do more and do more. And the picture of, the Dixie cup, I think is really accurate, because I think a lot of women are out there that are trying to get a piece of it, and they may not be going about it the right way.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I'll share a little fact that a lot of people may not know. Schools were created way back in the day to produce factory workers. Not a lot of people know this. So you would go to school, and the end game in that was so that you would be educated to work in a factory. Not a lot has changed in schools, wouldn't you agree, since when schools began? So because not a lot has changed, and we are really experiencing that schools are to work in factories, then think today you go to school to go get a job. They produce W-2 employees. There isn't, even in college, taking a business administration degree, there isn't really a degree out there that teaches an entrepreneur how to become an entrepreneur. So I say to any individual that is not looking to have a job or become, like, say, a nurse, a doctor, an attorney, an engineer, right? I say don't go to college, honestly. Spend your money in taking the trade that you need, hiring people that have built businesses before you, and hire them to build a business. And to me, that is the best spent money than spending 4 years in a college that is essentially teaching you a little bit more about how to become a W-2 employee. So it's kind of a big waste of money. And I'm sure a lot of moms and dads out there are like, no, honey, don't listen to that. And I kind of had that feeling too when my cousin said to my kids when they were really young, don't go to college. I was like, whoa, hey, don't be telling my kids that. He goes, seriously, I started a business out of high school. And if your kids want to be entrepreneurs, they don't need to waste their time in college. I said, essentially, you're right. And one of those children actually went on to become an engineer and had to go to a university to learn mechanical engineering and is now practicing as an electrical engineer. So again, based on what your degree is and where you're pursuing, I think we need to think about how we pursue that education of what we're looking for. And that's really what we're talking about in entrepreneurship. Looks different for small business owners in every area. If you want to be an online, store and you want to sell goods and really just have products that you're pumping out, you really need to work with an expert that builds stores online, and that's who you need to work with. So I think it's important for us to kind of really look at the industries and where we're wanting to build those types of businesses and what we're doing with those businesses,
Yeah. Wow. And I was working with a company, I don't know, about 6 years ago. And he was trying to build kind of like an app, but really an idea of matching business owners that were willing to train people in the trades, because it was such a lack of people to work in the trades, because everybody went to college and nobody, decided to like learn a trade. And at the end of the day, you're right. If you're not going to be an engineer or a doctor or a professor or, whatever, it almost doesn't make sense, because you put yourself in so much debt. Mm-hmm. And so you put yourself in debt. And then you have to pay that debt off for 40 years at this point, right? And you're right. You're just going to be another W-2 employee. But if you learn a trade, now you have the skill for life. And you can always expound on that. And that was one of the things that I thought was really cool. We went into one of our local schools here, and now they do it every year. And they have a trade expo for the kids. So all of these different business owners that are in the trades go, And the high school kids, they kind of meet, they kind of interview them, learn some information about them. And when the kid gets out of school, or while the kid is in school, they get to learn a trade. Yeah. And I think that's amazing because there's nothing wrong. I think that there was a stigma that was put on the trades. And I think that the stigma was, have the gardener do that, have so-and-so do the electrical. I wish I knew how to do electric. I tried to change a socket 30 years ago, and I almost blew myself across the room because I don't know anything about that crap, right?
Yeah. So, well, a good point about that is most of the boys went to automotive.
Yes.
And woodworking. Well, I'm sorry, but men and women drive cars.
I went to woodworking.
Yeah. Men and women drive cars.
But I did.
So there's a lot of dads out there teaching their daughters how to change tires.
Yep.
Because it's bound to happen to you at some point. And I realize today we have OnStar, we have roadside assistance, but I still think that women need to understand how a vehicle functions. Now, I was lucky enough that I was raised in a family where I don't know why, but I know how pool pumps function. I know how I have replaced alternators in vehicles. And I think it has a lot to do with my dad leaving at a very early age and us really having to figure these things out. And I'm thankful that I was well versed in a lot of these areas because vehicles look way different today than they used to look. Yeah. And I do use, OnStar or roadside assistance, but that's because it's available. And I always say to my kids, you either need to know how to do it or you need to make enough money to pay someone to do it. That's really the two things. Right. That's what I used to tell them. And I would say, so if you're not going to be the one that makes enough money to pay someone, then you need to learn how to do it yourself. And that it really comes down to those two things. And even though you're paying someone to do it, say, you don't know how to do your own plumbing, or you don't know how to fix your own AC, or you don't know how to replace a, simple outlet like you talked about in your house. You have to be able to make the money to pay someone that's a tradesman to come in and do it. So you just have to decide for yourself, what are the things that are important for me in that? And this is the same thing in your business. Iris, it never changes.
I like how you're doing this. Because for the people who are on audio, Colleen is like losing her fist, and I love it because it's true. I mean, we don't. I love that you're saying that because as somebody, same thing. My mom and dad were divorced when I was 6. I'm old. I was changing tubes out behind the TV. Like the TV would break, and my mom would be like, "What do we need?" And, we had a little TV repair store up. So she would call the TV repair guy up and he was like, we need this. You need this tube. So my mom would get the tube. She wasn't going to touch it. I opened up the back of the TV, 7 years old, changing tubes. I knew how to fix a watch. I knew how to change a tire. All of that stuff.
Yeah.
I knew how to change the inner crap of the toilet, right? I mean, I just did it here. And I said, we bought the house. I'm like, I'll change it. I know how to do that. Now I'm like, we're just going to buy a new toilet. I don't deal with it anymore. But, and it wasn't out of necessity. It was out of habit.
Yeah.
Because I was so used to doing it that it was like, I'll just go to the store and do it. And then I was like, why the hell am I doing this when I could just...
Well, I'm glad that you said that because you're like, why am I going to the store? Why am I spending the money to buy this? Why am I replacing this when A, there's probably a handyman in the area I could call to do it for me. B, if you don't need a brand new toilet. B, maybe it's old and you could keep doing that over and over again and just replace it kind of like a vehicle. But that's no different than women in business. So let's just kind of linear, put that over into that bucket. In business, why are you doing the things that you can hire other people to do? So if you're producing your own podcast and doing all the editing, why can't you hire someone to do that? It is very inexpensive, by the way, to have that done. So let's say it takes you an hour or two to edit and do everything you need to do for your podcast. I have had individuals, in fact, working for me that charge as low as $25 to do that, right? $25 so that I could spend that hour or two in a networking event, meeting new women, so I can spend that hour or two running a workshop and getting more leads for my coaching. That right there is where I see the biggest downfall. So many women that I meet, I know exactly why they're not generating the income they want, because the minute I get clarity in their business, we know exactly what they need to do. And I tell them the actions to start generating income right away. About a week later, a lot of the times when we talk again, they're like, oh yeah, I haven't done that yet. Oh, I haven't done that yet. Every visibility piece that I told them to go do to start generating income is not done. But that week they created a graphic in Canva. And that week they created something else. And that week and I'm like, listen, creating those things are not going to generate income. I don't even care if you don't have a website. I have generated 6-figure incomes from programs I have launched that nobody could click on a button and go sign up for. They had to tell me they wanted it, and then I sent them an invoice and the information. So it's kind of like back in the day before the internet existed, we could do that. So I think that they hide behind the busy work, because that's what you got to do to get it going. And it's like, listen, I would rather you record 5 episodes and do all of that first, then go on, set up everything you need to on your podcast and start pumping out your episodes and marketing them, instead of spending months getting the back end of the podcast set up and never having one podcast produced. It's crazy to me.
I kind of agree and disagree with you on that, because you hit on 2 things, digital marketing that I do, and then podcast production. So yeah, you can have somebody produce a podcast or edit a podcast for $25, but you're going to get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like we do podcast production. This isn't going to happen for $25. What we're doing right now. I don't think. And websites, I'm a huge believer that if you're not online, you're not an option. If your competitor is online and you are not an option. And so, and I'm actually trademarking that. I had somebody say, you need to trademark that. And I'm going to, because it's true. And what people don't understand, and yes, you can do it the old fashioned way, and you can do, here's my card, and then, let's do business, and here's an invoice. And 6 figures, that's fantastic. But when I look at the culture now, at the way things are done now, I see most of the stuff done digitally. I don't see people really just saying, okay, come work with me. You have to get to know, like, and trust the person.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. You do have to know, like, and trust, but I'm not marketing those options to people that don't already know me, right? They already know me. So the people that were signing up for those programs, they already knew me. They've already been around me. They've already been participating in things I've been doing. And then that was in the funnel. That was the next step they would take, right? And so it's not like it was from scratch at all. There's no way I would ever just for the first time reach out to someone to sign up for a high ticket program of mine, not even knowing my name, what I do, haven't been around me. So these were people that were very familiar with me already, but sometimes I move a lot faster than my team can move in things that I want to produce and get out there. And I think that you can generate income necessarily without having a sales page and a link. Now, I 1,000% agree with you on the SEO part of it, the digital footprint on it. But if you're like me and you've already built a very large digital footprint, you can get away with something like that. So even if it's for the first time and you've got a community of women around you and you're connected with them, and say you're a coach for women, maybe life transformation, you can easily get out there, Iris, and start having conversations with them about how you can support them in a new program you've created for them, and then if they're like, yeah, that sounds like something I really need, then you can say, let me send you more information on it. We can get you signed up. I mean, that's easy. Yeah.
And there are ways. And I guess I feel like when you're first starting that, like, you built your reputation, so you can easily go and do that. But for somebody who's just starting, right, they just don't have that option. And, all honesty, if there's a brick and mortar, they can go on Google Business Profile and get a free website. I mean, it is what it is, right? So, and I tell my clients that. I mean, I don't I don't do Google Business Profile anymore. Most of my clients are not brick and mortar, and Google Business Profile now is only for brick and mortar, unless you have a brick and mortar, because they pretty much designed Google Business Profile now to be on the map. So if you're on the map, and they did that because there were so many scam businesses that were growing during COVID, that they were like, if you don't have a brick and mortar, we're not putting you on the map. Well, you're not, you have to optimize your website, and we have to, basically you have to do the optimization on the back end of your website to be Google friendly, so that Google will index you.
Yeah.
And they quantify, like they go, it takes like people are like, why does SEO take so long, right? If you're going to be doing that. And the reason is it's not SEO anymore, really. It's website optimization. And Google wants to quantify and make sure that you are who you are, that you do what you say you do, and you provide services that you say you provide. And it's a whole different landscape now.
I think the easiest way to quantify it is like this. And what the easiest way that I'm saying is, if we look at ready, aim, fire, I see a lot of women get ready, and then they aim, and they aim, and they aim, and they aim. And I'm like, all right, well, when are you going to fire? Like, when you fire, that's what's really going to help you bring in the income. So we can drain our bank accounts, and we can put thousands and thousands of thousands of dollars into our business to get started. But I would say, while you're doing that, you've got to be able to generate some income. So here's some easy ways to get moving on that faster, so that you can generate some income quick. And little wins like that really help build the confidence in the female that is, launching that business or scaling that business, for them to be able to feel like, oh, I can do this, right? I really can grow this business. So I say, ready, fire, like I'm quick. Because you can recover from a bad decision. I am very quick. And I think one of the fastest paths to wealth is speed. So that was probably the one thing in corporate America that I don't miss at all, ever, is how freaking slow every decision they made was.
And that's like a perfect segue, because I was going to say, what made you decide to become an entrepreneur? Like, what made you decide to leave corporate and be like, okay, I'm going to be doing this now?
I went on a self-development journey in 2016. And when I went on that self-development journey, I started realizing the areas in my life that weren't fulfilled, the areas in my life that I was choosing to be frustrated with, the things I was settling for, because I didn't really have enough belief in myself at that point, Iris. Honestly, I was extremely successful in corporate America. Can you believe that I was an executive, but I didn't have the confidence in myself after launching all of these hundreds of businesses with business owners, extremely successful, to think I could go do it on my own? What was going on in my brain that I thought, no way could I do this on my own? Once I started understanding myself better and walking down that, who I am and what my values are and what I stand for. And, I had become an empty nester, and my kids had left my house, and my role had changed. And it was really about getting back in connection with what Colleen wanted and who she was. And I did want to build something of my own. I did want to see, can I do it? Is it possible? I love challenging myself beyond what I think my mental or physical capacity is. And I've proved that over and over and over again with becoming a certified personal trainer, with running marathons and half marathons, with becoming a black belt in Taekwondo. There's a lot of things I push myself on. And so this was another thing. One of the biggest things ever was pushing myself in entrepreneurship. And I knew once it started, it was like, now you've just got to do it on your own. And I knew that I didn't want to play in that sandbox anymore. I'd been feeling it for a long time. And it was just time for me to go and retire. And my husband asked me if I would ever go back. And I said, I don't believe I'm even employable at this point. I would prefer to work for a large company as a consultant and not under their umbrella of rules and all of their benefits. I really don't care about those. I can afford my own benefits. Thank you very much. But I'd rather work under my terms. And it's not that I don't play well with others in the sandbox. It's just that it's so closed that I just want the freedom.
Right. And, it's so funny you say that you're not employable anymore. I think like everybody that I have on the show, we laugh because it's like, we're not employable anymore. I could never see myself like ever working for anybody like ever again. And it's funny because, when you work for people like for so long and then all of a sudden it's like you work for yourself and there is this freedom. There's also a lot that goes with it. And I don't want people to think that, and maybe you disagree with me, but, I don't think it doesn't happen overnight. For me, it didn't happen overnight. It took a long time to build my although I had my reputation, but, build relationships, really prove that you are an expert in your field, that you know your stuff, that your product speaks for itself. I mean, that's, that takes time. And so what advice would you have for somebody who's like thinking about becoming an entrepreneur? Because, it's like, as we sit here as entrepreneurs, there's, we're all successful and there's different levels of success. But, for somebody who's in corporate right now going, yeah, I've been tired of this for a while, it's time to do something. Or out of necessity, maybe they lost their job and, they have to figure something out.
I think the first step is really to determine, do I have something, a product or a service that's viable in the marketplace? That's the very first thing you need to ask yourself. So are you offering a service that nobody needs at all, right? Or are you offering a product and service that there are people out there that have a need for it? So that's the very first question, and do your research on kind of that competitive market analysis to see what's out there and how are people doing in that industry and what are they charging and, what does that look like? So that's kind of really the first step. You have to have a problem, regardless what you think, you have to have a problem you're solving for someone. And that's in every industry. So if someone has a car, you can be someone who is a mobile mechanic, right? Because you're solving a problem. Someone breaks down the side of the road and they need you to come fix it. The best thing that ever happened to my husband and I was when our trailer caught on fire and we didn't know that the brakes had locked up in one of our tires. Someone like massively rushed us off the road in this big trailer we were pulling, and he's screaming, your trailer's on fire. What do you do when your trailer is melted, the axle on one side and the tire is bent? How do you haul that thing out of there? It's a little big, right? It's not like calling a tow truck or anything like that. And I literally looked up on Google, mobile RV repair near me. And this company came up. His name was Nick, right? And he had a company. And I called him and I was like, you're a lifesaver. So there are plenty of people out there that owned RVs that I'm sure get stranded on the side of the road. And there was a need for that. And I asked him, how'd you get into this? He said he kind of fell into it. He used to repair them. And then all of a sudden there were so many people that would get stranded. And then he is like, this is a viable business. I can travel out there, fix what they need. And I thought, wow, dude, that's genius, right? And so, of course, I just started promoting him everywhere I could in his business because I think it's amazing. So I'm using that as an example of, if you have something that people have a need for, then go and look at it to see what that business looks like that already exists today and see if it's something that, and here's the other thing, you have to be very comfortable in sales. And I say that because every single person that's an entrepreneur is a full commissioned salesperson. And when someone tells me as an entrepreneur, I do not like sales, I always say you need to reframe that, because you are 100% sales commission based. You make $0. And none of you would take that position as a W-2 at a company. I guarantee you that. I just remember walking into my boss and I had just read a book and it said, why don't you try to negotiate your salary with your boss based on commission? And my boss got commission and I didn't. So I walked into his office and sat down and I said, I would like to find out about going on commission. He laughed at me. And I said, I don't understand why you're laughing. And he's like, oh, please, you wouldn't be able to go on. And I said, you could give me 100% commission because I'm locked in at the rate I make right now. But if you gave me 100% commission and I had the opportunity to make more than I'm making right now, I would be all over that. And of course, right then it was like, no way I don't know if it's because they thought I would outsell them or what it was, but I wanted it. Like I wanted to have more opportunity because I just felt like why would I even try harder? There's no going up, I'm like reporting to the CEO. The next step is the CEO and that's not going to happen because it was the son of the previous CEO, whatever, you know what I'm saying? So you're like, well, there's nowhere for me to go. There's nowhere for me to go. And so it was like, well, I'm going to become my own CEO. So if someone is to the point where they're now outside of themselves looking in and they really see that this isn't what they want to do. They're looking for more freedom. And here's the tricky part to be very careful of. When I say freedom, I'm not talking about binging Netflix in the middle of the day. I'm not talking about more time for you just to chill at home, go on vacation whenever you want, work whenever you want. Entrepreneurship doesn't have to be hard, but there's a dedication piece to entrepreneurship, to pushing on the gas to get your business up off the ground that requires a commitment. And that commitment is serious. And so if you're messing around and you think, oh, this is great, I can just chill and work whenever I want. Maybe if you have an online store and you're running Google ads and everything's being sponsored, right? And you're just throwing money at it and that's producing hits and purchases on your store, great. But most entrepreneurs that I find are a lot like you and I, Iris, and we are building our brands and we're building our businesses. Therefore, we have two routes that we can go. You're either going to go the influencer route, which is social media. So you're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn and Threads. Those are where you influence people and get an enormous amount of followers and an audience, or you're networking. And if you're networking, you're joining chambers, you're out in your community, you're sponsoring events, you're speaking on stages virtually and in person, you're hosting workshops, you're running your own things, and you are meeting people all the time in different digital rooms and in person. Those are the two routes you've got to go with your business. Really, those are the only routes that are out there unless you are behind the scenes with a product on a store and you're just like advertising through paid, advertisement. So you've got to decide which route works for you. And if none of those routes work for you and you're not willing to work for it, then I say stay a W-2 employee and find another job that lights you up. Honestly.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody.
Well, it's definitely not for everybody. And it's, again, that, not misnomer. Misconception. Thank you. That it happens overnight. Just Sato and I had just Sato on yesterday and we were laughing because it was like these overnight successes took like 10 years, it didn't like just happen, like that. And I was talking to somebody a few weeks ago and she was like, okay, so I want to be an entrepreneur. So, how long do you think how long do you think it will take me? I'm on cold medicine, so I apologize. How long do you think it will take me to make my first $200,000? And I said, maybe focus on what you're doing first instead of what you're making first, because how are you making it? What are you doing? And she was like, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking of doing like A, B, C, and D. And I said, okay. I said, do you have enough people? Do you have a pipeline? Have you spoken to people yet? Well, that's what I'm working on. Well, yeah, you got to work on that. And, how much is your product? Because if you have a high ticket product,
yeah,
but you have to pay out a lot. Yeah, you'll make it first 200,000, but you're going to make about 10. I mean, it depends on what.
I really think so.
Right? You have to look at your bottom line. Like, people don't realize that you have to look at, okay, what are my monthly expenses? I mean, for me, that was a wake up call this year. I've had this business for 10 years. It was always money in, money out, doing things. And then it got real. And it was like, ooh, I need systems. Ooh, I need to do this. Ooh, like all of the, big girl panic things came into play. And, we were laughing. I had my meltdown because I realized I was scaling. I had my meltdown and it was like, holy crap. I gave myself a weekend to freak out and do all the things. And then Monday I hit the ground running. And I was like, okay, let's do this because, there's no this and there's and I've been talking about this a lot lately, that women are, we're here and then we want to get here, but society as a whole is like, no, you're supposed to be here. So a lot of women self-sabotage and so that they can stay at that level that they think society feels that they should be at. But, personally, it was like, I want to be here. I'm going here. I'm not staying down here. There's no self-sabotage. Let's do this. And it's taken a while, but, now that I'm in that spot and I look at, okay, my monthly expenses are this. I never had to look at it before, but now they're starting to pile up, right? It's like, I got to pay for this and I got to pay for this and I got to pay for this. And holy shit, I'm bringing in this much money, but that's not what I'm making. So there's like I think a wake up call there somewhere that, you have to really have a good plan in place to know that these are your expenses. This is what your product costs. And then you have to start looking at, okay, what's the reality here? And how am I going to, actually make money on what I'm doing? And it takes time. It takes sometimes a wake up call. Like for me, I did this like online challenge and that was my wake up call. I didn't have the systems in place.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that. And I think it's going all the way back to the very beginning in what we talked about, Iris, which is when you are scaling like that and you're starting to make more money and you're like, whoa, now I've got to automate some things and I've got to be able to have a team that I'm building. Maybe you need to bring on an attorney on your team and you have someone you can call. Maybe you need to bring on an accountant. These aren't very expensive team members, but if you brought on an accountant, you could have them go through all your books. You could have them help you understand what your expenses are, what percentage you're spending on marketing, what percentage you're spending on payroll, what percentage you're spending on, travel or these other pieces. And then now I say knowledge is power. So now I go back to the numbers. When you know the numbers, you have the knowledge and now you have the power. So that's when you can look at it and go, wow, my expenses are 80%. That's a problem. So you sometimes forget that you have subscriptions out there. Maybe you've joined communities that you never play in. Maybe you've bought some subscriptions to some software online that you thought you were going to use. You never use it. And what I love about bookkeepers or accountants is they'll go in and kind of clean everything up for you and show you the real numbers of what's happening in your business.
Right.
That's when you have the knowledge to create some changes. And it also drives you to know, I need to be creating 10% more income than what I'm creating right now if I'm going to continue this growth, And so I think hiring those people on teams that are very inexpensive for you to have, and if you don't have the right contracts in place and you don't have SOPs that you've created, that's when you can get VAs and assistants and attorneys to help you create a lot of these things. Right. So that you have them in your business, which makes it easier for you to bring on and scale and grow with additional teammates.
Right. And and I love that you say SOPs because you have to have SOPs. Yeah. I think that is one of the most important things. So there are people that are listening that are seasoned entrepreneurs.
Mm.
So what are some obstacles that you've overcome?
All right. The biggest obstacle that I'm going to say that every single seasoned entrepreneur has had to overcome out there is money that we've thrown at an investment opportunity or an opportunity that we thought was going to take our business to the next level, and it wound up being a flop. And so that's $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. I'm talking a lot of money, right? Mm-hmm. If you're a seasoned entrepreneur, small business owner, and you've thrown money at something, you're like, this is it. This is really going to help. And then it became a flop. Overcoming that failure is absolutely one of the hardest things to do, because you are gun shy for the next opportunity. And we have to remember that taught us a lesson.
Yes.
It taught us what we either possess on our own, and we didn't have to hire that company. There was things that we could have done for ourselves. Maybe it taught you some 3 or 4 lessons throughout that. Now we've learned from it. We should leave it in the past, wipe it away. And then when another opportunity comes up in the future, now based on what we learn, we weigh that opportunity against what we've learned. And then we don't become gun shy. We say, okay, right, this still fits the bill for what I've learned, and I still think this is going to be a good opportunity. My husband just ran into that issue when it came to franchising his business. And it was, we had to spend a lot of money to hire a company to help us work through all the legal terms and doing all of that. And we had made some previous investments that kind of shook out to be bad investments. And he's like, well, what if that happens again? And I said, so what if it does? Okay, we've checked references. I've called people, like nothing about this company is bad. So if it fails, it's only going to be because we haven't done what we need to do to make this work. You know what I'm saying? So I feel a lot better knowing that I'm the one in the driver's seat in this than somebody else. And I said, it's only money. You can make more money. And many people think, oh, but it's so precious. And the money, if I lose it, it's like, it doesn't matter. If $551 billion is spent annually on sex trafficking, then I think there's a lot of money out there, and you need 1 grain of salt.
Wow.
That's all you need.
That just changed it.
You see what I'm saying?
You're 100% right. Yeah.
Yeah. 1 grain of salt of that 551 billion that's being passed around is all you need to change your life forever. There's a lot of money out there, and I don't think that people see the opportunities. So I say, you screw it up, you lose it, fine. You take those lessons, weigh it against the next opportunity, but you can always make more money.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's true. I mean, I would have gone the sex trafficking route, but I mean, you're not wrong. But I think at the end of the day, I always tell people there's more than enough for everybody. It's like there are, I've had other marketers on here, and, if people are like, oh my God, they're in marketing also. Yeah. So we do the same thing. Trust me, there's more than enough for everybody. And I believe in collaboration and not competition.
Me too.
Not everybody, a lot of people whose values don't align with mine are very competitive. They're like, oh, well, you're a marketer and I'm a marketer and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to make sure whatever. And it's like, that's so stupid, because if maybe we can combine forces, maybe there's somebody that's not right for me that I can refer to you. But if you're going to be an asshole and be completely competitive about it, guess what? I'm going to refer somebody who's not an asshole. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
So true.
Because there's more than enough to go around. There is so much room for collaboration. So much room.
Yeah. Let's just use the example of all the different types of phones that are out there. Yeah. I mean, you've got Apple users, and then people that like different versions of Apple. And then you have, Samsung users or Android users, and there's a billion different types of those phones. And everyone's going to choose the different type of that they like. I collaborate a lot with another business coach. I've had clients that she now works with. She's had clients that I now work with. We have shared each other's stages. We promote and share each other's events. I have no problems referring people to her. She refers people to me. We have 2 totally different personalities. And people are going to be, it's why I wrote my book, Step Into the Spotlight, to attract the right clients. When you're out there and you're showing your authenticity and your true personality, you attract people that are like, I want to work with her. There's going to be some people that you're going to see open their mouth and talk, and you're just going to be like, ugh, I would never work with them because it's just not a good fit for you.
Right.
So we have to remember that there's also billions and billions of people on this earth, and you only need a granule of that as well.
Right.
So when we think about it, it's not that hard. We build up that in our minds to make it Mount Everest. Mm-hmm. And even tomorrow, Iris, if you and I were flown out of here on helicopters and we were taken up to the base of Mount Everest and they said, here's your guides, here's your map, and they're going to guide you the entire way on exactly what you need to do. And we want you to, acclimate to the altitude tonight. We're going to stay here for 24 hours. And tomorrow we want you to do these breathing exercises. And then the next day we're going to walk up to the next base camp. We're like, we got this. By the time we're done, over a week or two span, you and I would be standing at the top of Mount Everest. However, if you and I were dropped at the bottom of Mount Everest with zero knowledge, what are the odds that you and I would even make it? Zero. Like
we'd be drinking. By like the second summit, we'd be like, all right, let's have a drink.
We would be dead. Like most people don't realize the lack of oxygen. You have to have oxygen when you get to the top of Mount Everest. People die because they don't bring oxygen with them. There's a lot of things about the weather, about, the way rocks move, the glaciers. There's a lot of things about Mount Everest we don't know. This is exactly how I use that analogy with business. So many people jump into it and think, I can just do this business. I can figure it out. I can do it on my own. And maybe they last for a year or two and they're struggling and they've made a little bit of money. So just enough to keep them going, but they're just going broke. Like they're just dumping money into it. And that's why businesses close.
Right.
They just don't know how to. It's not that their product isn't amazing. They might have the best pizza on earth. I have seen pizza places open that have the best equipment, Italian ovens, wood ovens, like everything about that pizza was the best thing. They didn't market for crap.
Right.
They didn't treat their, customers the way they should have. Maybe they didn't treat their employees the way they should have. And the whole kind of back end of how the business was running was crap. Right. So they had an amazing product, but they screwed up because they didn't get the right people on their team to help them really get their name out there the way they needed to, right? They didn't hire Iris. So that's what happens.
Right. And it's, the fact that you say that, I had somebody who we don't understand, and I can't wrap my brain around how businesses don't understand how important marketing is. It's like, because that's how you get in front of people. That's how people know that you are there. And I got to the point now that I don't argue anymore. Mm-hmm. If I have a meeting with somebody, they don't get the value of what I do, see ya.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I can't. I used to like, try to convince them, like, how are you not seeing this? And you talk about being your authentic self. I don't play. This is it. Like what you see, this is it. I'm very straightforward. And that's why the people who work with me, because they know I'm going to give it to them straight. If they're doing something that I don't think they should be doing in my professional expert, opinion, I'm going to tell them. They can do what they want, but I'm going to tell them because I can't stop them. Right. So, but when it comes to convincing people to work with me, no. And then I had somebody say, well, then you're not positioning the sale properly. And it's like, no, that's actually not true. I'm positioning I don't need help with sales because they're like, you can position it this way. And sometimes, yes, maybe you can position something differently if you're trying to sell somebody, but if you're trying to help somebody, no. And that's the difference that I think, for me, is that I don't try to sell people. If I don't think after one meeting that I can help that person, I don't pursue it.
Right.
Why am I going to work with them? If I can't help them, or if I don't help them, they're going to be like, oh my God, she sucks.
That I agree with you, and you shouldn't. And I think that really goes back to having the ideal client that you're working with, Iris. Yep. That's what it goes back to. And so I always say the wrong client is going to be the client that feels like a sack of potatoes that you're dragging behind your back through quicksand. And so I tell people that I talk to, whenever I meet somebody, I tell them I'm interviewing you just as much as you're interviewing me. So I don't just say yes to every client that says they want to give me money. I have said no to women that wanted to sign up for my masterminds, and that's a big chunk of money because they are not the right fit. Mm-hmm. And they would suck every type of energy out of that mastermind. And they're only there to sell themselves and their services. And that's not what a mastermind is. Right. And I say, I'm sorry. No, I said no to women coming to retreats because they have bad energy. They're not going to be the best one for that retreat again, because they want to just sell themselves and sell everybody else at the retreat. And that's not what the retreat is about. Right. Yeah. So I am 1000% agreeing with you on that. And we're not selling anyone. You can't sell people. You're presenting an opportunity to someone that has a need in that area. They either decide to accept that. And yes, I do see how I really need that in my business, because you've painted a clear picture for them on how it would benefit their company. If they still say no, then you can't help them. No. You can't save the world. No. It doesn't work that way. And if any woman that comes to me, and this is just about everyone I've ever worked with in the beginning, I say, who are you serving? I want to help everybody. Okay, well, if you're going to try and help everyone, you're going to help nobody.
That's so, okay, I'm just, so no, I say no more than I ever did. Yeah. When I first opened my business 10 years ago, it was like, oh yeah, sure, I'll work with you. Oh yeah, sure. We can, we'll build you a website. We'll do SEO. We'll do whatever you need, because we needed the money. Yeah. And now it's not even that I don't need money. I mean, I think we always, want to bring more money in, but if the values don't align, I can't do the work. If I don't agree maybe with certain things that you embrace, I can't work with you. Mm-hmm. If our values don't align, I can't work with you. And it doesn't mean, I'm not going to get political, but there's just certain lines, right, that I will not cross. Period. There is a line
You know that in your business. And when you stand in that gives a surety to the other person that they know exactly where you stand. They know exactly how you're going to support them, and they know exactly what you're going to offer them. And right. I think there's nothing better than that clarity that you have, Iris, in your business, and you don't ever apologize for that and never move the boundary. Right?
And it is a boundary. I had, this is kind of funny. I had a Zoom meeting with a prospective client who saw me on Facebook, on LinkedIn rather. I was like, oh, I've been following you for a while. I need help with my marketing. I want to hire you. And I said, let's have a meeting first. Because I always say, let's have a meeting first. I do a meet and greet so that I know I'll be a good fit. I need to know what you think you need. And then, you tell me your story and whatever. And I have a wife, that's no secret. And I'm a musician, and I had a pride flag in where my guitar was hanging. And I didn't even think about it. Like it wasn't even I didn't even know it was on camera, to be honest with you. And the first thing he did when he got on our call was he looked past me. And I was like, hi. And he went, oh. And I said, oh, what? He goes, you have one of them pride flag things. He goes, you must be a liberal. And I went, oh, what? I said, this isn't going to work. He goes, wait a minute. I didn't even tell you what I need. I'm like, the first thing that you did was completely polarize this conversation. You completely just said, this isn't going to work. And so I ended the conversation, and he sent me a message saying, I'm really sorry, but I was just kind of stunned that was in the background. And I said, oh, and he didn't feel that it was appropriate. And I said,
how does he know that wasn't your daughter's? And how does he know that wasn't a best friend of yours that passed away and you had gotten that at a march or at
didn't know anything?
I
didn't know that it wasn't a gay flag and that maybe it was like just a rainbow or whatever, right?
Like, I think to myself, I'm still trying to understand this, Iris. Why does your preferences of who you have in your home and who your partner is, how does that change what a great marketer you are?
Because people don't look. So
did you ever ask me if I was married or had children? Do you even know if I'm married to a man or a woman or married at all, or if I'm a single mother?
Not if one. Talk about it. No.
Right. Well, right? So that's the interesting thing.
Well, and you say preference, and that's like a whole other, that's a whole different podcast, and it's not a preference, but because we're born right this way, that it's not.
I absolutely agree.
Right. So, but
I still think, to me, in my mind, it's a choice. I don't know. You say we don't choose, but I think we choose based on what we're born and what we.
But it's what we're born with. We don't have that choice. Right?
I agree with you.
So that's
the way I was born.
I had this conversation with this woman who's going to be doing sales for me yesterday. It was like so funny. She's like, I don't know how to say this. And I said, I don't want you to feel uncomfortable.
No, and it shouldn't be uncomfortable. I think we are all born the way we're born for a reason, period.
And if people think, and this is what I love, if people think that somebody in their right mind would choose what they call a lifestyle, which isn't a lifestyle, it's our life, would choose the kind of life where we are persecuted every day, where people want to see us dead every day, where they're insane. It's not a choice. It's not a preference. It's not a lifestyle. This is who we are, who we have in our lives, who we fall in love with is who we fall in love with. My wife, to me, is the best person in the world. Best person in the world. She is the kindest, most just generous, wonderful, does not put up with my shit at all woman. But I fell in love with her because that's how I was born. If I was born where I was straight, then she would probably be a he. But regardless, so
I 1,000% agree with you.
Right. But I think the thing with him, he didn't get it. And for about a week, he was like, I think you're being difficult. And I said, you know what? We're ending this conversation. I'm putting you on block. And I let him know that I was blocking him because it just got to the point that it was like, this is just stupid at this point. But I guess my point with it is that, people look at, oh my God, what if he could have been your greatest client? What if he could have?
You wouldn't have been.
Like, are you insane? Even if he was going to be a $20,000 a month client,
not worth it.
Worth it, No. And my wife, we had that conversation. She said $20,000 a month. I said, babe, really? And but it's like there has to be a line in the sand that you draw that you're not going to cross.
Well, when you have that, though, Iris, I think that you brought up a good point. When we have boundaries and everyone knows clearly what our brand is, what we stand for, who we work with, who we are, it's a lot easier for people out there to make decisions to work with us or not. It's when your boundaries are moving, when you're unclear. I have seen women in my community, Iris, building businesses, and they've gotten on numerous networking events. They've taught classes. They've done interviews with me. And I will tell you, there are some of them, and I will ask them and say, do you know I still don't clearly know what you do? Because one day you do this, and then the next day you do this, and another day you're doing this. And I'm like, why don't you just, instead of chasing the client, why don't you set up shop for what it is you do and have the clients come to you?
Right.
And so that assurity that you have is a secret sauce that anyone right now that's looking to leave corporate America or start their own business needs to know that that has to be in place.
Oh, 100%. Because
it has to be in place.
But it took me a long time to get to where I don't care, to where I know that, you know, I mean, I always knew what my values were, right? But
right.
I would like bend the rules here and there. I don't anymore. And I think that anybody who works with me knows that, right? They know that not the gay part. I don't give a shit about that. But they know who I am. They know what I will deal with from a client. And you're right. You are interviewing them as well. Period.
That's right.
And you know, even if you're going for a corporate job, they need to know that you're interviewing them as well. Any kind of a meeting that you have, and it's a first time meeting, at the end of the day, two people are interviewing each other.
That's right.
It. And you're going to decide whether you're going to work together or not.
The same thing in a relationship. You're interviewing each other to see 100%. If it's going to work. It should be in everything we do. So that's the advice, the long-winded advice we would give someone leaving corporate America.
And that was from way before. Okay, so what I'm going to say what your differentiator is, but I think we already know that. So and we're at like an hour. I told you, it goes so fast. Wow. It always goes so fast. And I think you and I could probably just keep going for like a really long time. I think next time we have a little bit of wine. Because then I'll get really interesting for sure. I know I'm going to let you out in a minute. The dogs are like, you're done. So thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise and just you with my audience. And the last question that I always ask everybody is, what lights your fire?
Oh my gosh. What lights me up? Holy moly. So much does, but one of the biggest things that light me up the most is watching, whether it be women in my circle, women that I'm coaching, women that are in my community, just watching them succeed, be proud of what they've built. And my goal in every instance is for this person to just outshine. And that just lights my fire. It really does. I love to see businesses succeed. I love to see women just kick ass. And that just really lights my fire. It does. And I'm not one of those people on the sidelines saying, oh, look at her. Oh my gosh, I wish that was me. Oh, she's only there because I gave her the referral. That is not me. I am by far one of the biggest supporters of other women, and I want them to succeed in every area, because whether we like it or not, we're still categorized as a minority in the face of the government. Right. And many people still see us that way. And a lot of other people that aren't women don't get it. And that's fine. I am a woman and I do get it. And so we do have to fight a little harder for those things. And I will say that when women succeed and they're happy and they're making money and they're in the spotlight and people are giving them standing ovations or whatever that looks like, I want to be a cheerleader on the side to support them through that. That just makes me so happy. And it's worth more than money.
I love that because, I always say that for me, it's always about paying it forward and being that hand up. And when somebody does succeed like that and you see that, I agree. That's really awesome. That's really awesome. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to say goodbye to the audience and I'll be right back.
Great.
So, all right. Thank you guys again. Not guys. Thank you everyone again for hanging in for an hour plus. I hope you got some golden nuggets today from Colleen. If you did, share, like, subscribe. Keep subscribing because the more you subscribe, you'll get instant notification of when the next episode comes out. And it helps our numbers. Not going to lie. A little bit of, self-promotion in there. But I appreciate every single one of you. I just got another email the other day about, and this is like my favorite thing in the world, that, I listen to you when I'm working out, which is awesome because then I feel like I'm getting my exercise that I should be getting. So thank you. Keep the emails coming. And again, appreciate all of you. Until the next time, go out and find what lights your fire. See you next time.